we have our next speaker, allow me to share a bit of background about our next speaker, that was His Excellency Tan Sri Hasmy bin Agam. Now, Tan Sri Hasmy Agam has served with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in various positions, among others, of course, as ambassadors, and he has also served concurrently as Malaysia's observer to the Conference of Disarmament in Geneva in 1987 until 1990. He also served as permanent representatives and alternate permanent representative to the United Nations in New York on several occasions. And also he has also served in the Malaysian embassies abroad, not just as ambassadors, but also in other capacities in several countries. And in 5th of July 2010, Tan Sri is then appointed as Chairman of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia. Now, without further ado, let us have Tan Sri Hasmy Agam.
Thank you very much, Vikas, for that introduction. Mr. Christopher Leong, President of the Bar Council, Senator Co-Chair of the Human Rights Committee of the Bar Council, Mr. E.Y. Wong, Co-founder of Tindak Malaysia, who actually insisted I come here this morning. Without my knowledge, my secretary had declined the invitation when he came through because I had something more actually today. Then when Andrew communicated with me through the internet, I felt a bit embarrassed because in the past, my functions in Bar Council activity clashed. So I've turned down a couple of invitations in the past. So I thought this time I would like to give the impression that I'm trying to steer away from the Bar Council. We work very closely together, Chris and myself, members of the selection committee of the commissioners actually, so we work very closely together. Anyway, thank you very much for the invitation, which you accepted, and good morning to all of you. So what I'm going to say, it's not going to be very exciting. These are mostly principles of the international system on free and fair elections, so bear with me when I read through. As we are discussing the subject of free and fair elections, let me begin by quoting the communist dictator of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin, who utterly disagreed with this democratic concept. He was reported to have said, and I quote, "It is enough that people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. The people who count the votes decide everything." This is the first time that I heard it when one of my officers tried to help me in getting something. So let us keep this infamous quotation in mind as we deliberate on this important subject today. As we all know, Malaysia went through its last general elections on May 2013. There were so many opinions as to what went wrong, what went right, and what could have been done better. Practices that shouldn't have been carried out, and so on and so forth. As so many things have been stated about it, I will focus this morning only on the topic that has been assigned to me, that is, free and fair elections from the perspective of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I hope you will bear with me as I cite the various principles of human rights that pertain to the subject of free and fair elections. They will provide a backdrop for discussion during Q&A afterwards, I think. Let me begin by citing Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, which states that everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right of equal access to a public service in his country, his or her country. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. Now, Article 25 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR, states, every citizen shall have the right and the opportunity, without unreasonable restrictions, A, to take part in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives, B, to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, which shall be universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret ballot, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors, and C, to have access on general terms of equality to public service in his country or her country. Then there was the declaration on the criteria for free and fair elections, which was unanimously adopted by the Inter-Parliamentary Council at the 154th session in Paris on 26 March 1994. We said, among others, that this declaration reaffirms the significance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the ICCPR as mentioned, which established that the authority to govern shall be based on the will of the people as expressed in periodic and genuine elections. It also acknowledges and endorses the fundamental principles relating to periodic free and fair elections that have been recognized by states in universal and regional human rights instruments, including the right of everyone to take part in the government of his or her country, directly or indirectly, through freely chosen representatives, to vote in such elections by secret ballot, to have an equal opportunity to become a candidate for election, and to put forward his or her political views. I think there's also something in this in the context of the ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights. On the basis of the above mentioned declarations and covenants that I have cited above, it is a universally accepted principle that elections are an essential part of human rights to be enjoyed by the citizens of a country, provided that it gives voice to the political will of the people involved. It should be truly free and fair in line with international standards. It must be conducted in an atmosphere which is respectful of basic rights. Now let me say something about the election monitoring by SWACAM and alleged human rights infringements in respect of G13. As you are aware, the term of SWACAM commissioners had expired on 25th April 2013, about 10 days before the 13th general election. So arising from that, the Commission had its limitations in monitoring the elections. There was a lot of public criticism about this, but let me say here that according to our records, no general election in the country in the past had been officially monitored by SWACAM. In fact, there are only very few examples of national human rights institutions in other countries that monitor their general elections, with the exception of perhaps two that I found out. They do it quite regularly, namely our counterparts that is the Human Rights Commission in Zimbabwe and in Kenya. However, what SWACAM did in the run-up to the general elections was that we called upon members of the public to report to the Commission any human rights infringements that they knew of during the electoral process. The Commission then headed by its Secretary, in the absence of the Commissioners, and assisted by its officers, monitored the elections by receiving complaints from the public on polling day. For the record, the Commission received a total of 59 complaints as enumerated below. Complaints about indelible ink, we received 22 complaints. Usage of pencil instead of pen, 12. Missing name from electoral roll, 2. Unable to vote, name marked as I voted, but not able to vote, 2. Never registered as voter, but name appeared in the electoral roll, 2. place. Long queue at Barlow SPR, free. Unable to vote, because the polling centre was located on another floor. 1, so a total of 15. Now the Commission also conducted a general monitoring of the media of the elections, the conduct of the elections. What we did in Swakam was, while the commissions were decommissioned, we asked the Secretary, as a party advice, we will be recommissioned again, to make sure that we have a secretariat at Swakam to give general, to provide general monitoring of what happens in the electoral process, mostly through watching articles written in newspapers, coverage of the elections, television discussions, and so on and so forth. That's most we could do. The Commission found that many of the media coverage by national newspapers were biased and published news that were largely one-sided. Generally, the nature of the coverage is as follows. Among the newspapers, Utusan Malaysia, Berita Harian, and the New Straits Times, mainstream media, more coverage for Barisan Nasional. The issues they covered relate to programs, manifesto, and activities of candidates. The Star gave more coverage for MCA candidates, limited coverage for independent candidates. They focus on programs, achievements, slogans, and advertisements. Sinar Harian, Sinchu Daily, and Namian Tiampao gave coverage for both BN, PR, and independent candidates. Online media, active coverage for both BN, PR, and independent candidates. Now let me say something about the role of the media. Clearly the media plays an important role in the process of the election in 3 main areas. Namely, to give wide coverage and provide information and analysis, 2, to function as watchdogs, and 3, to serve as the eyes, ears, and voice of voters. Now, the fundamental principle of free and fair elections are well established in Article 21 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I mentioned just now. While it is undeniable that free and fair elections are essential criteria of any democracy, the media also plays a crucial role in ensuring that elections are free and fair, and seem to be free and fair. That is important. In achieving this, the media has the roles that I mentioned just now, the 3 that I have enumerated. Now, in the context of providing coverage, information analysis, Article 19 of the UDHR states that every individual has the freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. This fundamental principle is particularly significant during election periods, as the members of the public depend to a large extent on media reports concerning the campaigns and information on all the participating political parties and candidates. This information is important for the public to enable them to make their assessment and decision. Now, in assisting the public voters at large to make an informed decision on voting day, the media must include interpretation and analysis of events and issues that are of relevance to the political parties and candidates through media reporting. The media personnel covering the election stories should ensure that the reports provide full, fair, and efficient disclosure of information to the public. In addition to this, the media should encourage diversity of opinions by creating space or columns for commentators and columnists to exercise freedom of expression and the sharing of information. The media also has a duty to educate the public on all the basic facts, procedures, and processes of elections according to the information provided by the Election Commission. These include the rights and responsibilities of voters, procedures to register as voters, venue of voting, ways to ensure the secrecy of votes, the candidates standing for election and their respective constituencies, and so on. The media can also serve as a link between political parties and voters by publishing the political parties' our candidates' campaign statements or advertisements, as well as by organizing public forums, debates, media interviews between and among the candidates. The professionalism of the media is crucial during the election period. To promote fair, safe and professional media election coverage, UNESCO supports and encourages full, fair and efficient disclosure of information to journalists covering elections, training to enhance professional election reporting, training on the safety of journalists and the right to work without threat, and the production and distribution of election guidelines reflecting principles of professional reporting during elections. Journalists' rights, election processes, and safety of information, as well as briefing notes on international human rights law with emphasis on the freedom of expression. This is what UNESCO has been doing and has enunciated. Now, in relation to the role of being watchdogs in the electoral process, the media should act as watchdogs on behalf of the public through its close monitoring of the election campaigns and voting process prior to, during, and after the election. The media has the responsibility to report on any incident or violation of the rights of candidates or voters, especially the right to free speech, any corruption in election and voting procedures, any misconduct of political parties or candidates, as well as the flaws of the Election Commission in managing and facilitating the elections. It is the media's responsibility to report on any violations of the rights of candidates or voters, including the right of free speech, any corruption in election and voting procedures, any misdemeanor by political parties, and or any sins of omission or commission by the election management authorities. Now, relating to serving as the voice of the observers, of the voters rather, while much attention is focused on political parties and candidates, the media should also pay considerable attention to the ordinary voices of the communities, particularly the vulnerable groups such as the elderly, women, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities. The media should assist these groups by putting forward their views and responses on pertinent issues arising during the campaign, as well as the assessment on whether the issues raised are getting better or worse off since the last elections. This information should be fairly and freely reported for public information and assessment. It will promote greater degree of accountability and transparency on the part of the candidates as well as the administrators of the relevant constituency. Now, on media accountability, in as far as media accountability is concerned, the media should perceive elections as processes involving crucial decisions on the future of the country or state concerned, in which the outcome relies to a great extent on media reports. Hence, the media should ensure and do more than just providing an intense and best-selling news stories, the sensational ones. The media should undertake the aforesaid roles with a view to promote democratic elections in the country. There is also need for the media to develop and adopt guidelines of code of conduct, media conduct, which should take account of the following key features. 1. Equitable or fair amounts of reporting on all political parties and candidates, fairness and independence of reporting of opinion polls, party access to free advertising on all state media, and highlights of the voices of the vulnerable groups during election reporting. The Commission recommends that all election candidates should have equal access to the government's communication channels, which should be non-partisan and unbiased in reporting national matters. All state-owned and government-linked media companies must remain independent in their reporting and cease unsubstantiated attacks against opposition parties. Clearly, there is a lot of deficiency in this area, which we wish to discuss afterwards. Let me mention some of the actions taken by the Commission following the general elections. Firstly, the Commission forwarded the complaints that I mentioned above that we received, as well as the issues highlighted during the discussion with election monitors to the Election Commission on 18 June. On 19 June, we received responses from the EC stating that they have formed a committee to review issues related to the endowment aid. The Commission organized a discussion. This is the election, SOCA, in other words, not the Election Commission. SOCA organized a discussion with independent observers appointed by the Election Commission to monitor the election process. They outlined key issues and offered a number of recommendations. I could mention some of these recommendations here, which were made by the independent observers. On electoral roll, they mentioned that there is a need to improve the electoral roll, as highlighted by expert groups that have carried out in-depth studies. They also mentioned about the size of constituencies and re-delineation exercise, in that they should be normalized. They should be normalized by ensuring the discrepancy is limited and not more than 15% of the average constituency in each state. This would be in line with the federal constitution. On the independence of the EC, the independent observers mentioned that the EC should be independent of the Prime Minister's department. Its members be made accountable to and appointed by a permanent and bipartisan special parliamentary committee. The EC should also have powers to recruit its own staff independent of the civil service. Now, on the role of a caretaker government, the independent observers mentioned that this role should be defined and legislated. Politicians should be aware of the limited role of a caretaker government, which is to ensure smooth day-to-day administration of the country during the general election. Now, on access for persons with disabilities, or in short, the PWD, they must have the same access to election facilities as everyone else. The right to vote for persons with disabilities is not expressly mentioned in the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2008. However, the right is guaranteed by virtue of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Therefore, the Election Commission must take steps to uphold the right to vote for these people, those with disabilities, who constitute between 15 to 20% of the population of any country. This is average. On election observers, the independent observers mentioned that the appointment of election observers should be made a permanent feature in all general elections. The appointment process should be improved and training provided based on best practices from the Asia Pacific countries. This is what they recommended. On the role of the media, they also mentioned that all election candidates should receive equal access to media. It is imperative that the government's communication channels be viewed as non-partisan and unbiased in the reporting of national matters. All state-owned and government-linked media companies must remain independent in their reporting and cease unsubstantiated attacks against the opposition parties, similar to the mentioned above. Now, for your information, in conclusion, SOCA had made a number of recommendations relating to elections as far back as 2007. I don't think I should go through in detail. The Commission then mentioned about the right to vote, the right to the assembly, universal suffrage, phantom voters, automatic registration, and so on and so forth. So that in a nutshell is my presentation on what free and fair election should be in the context of international principles of human rights. I'm quite prepared to answer questions after the QA. Thank you very much.